showcasing cultural and linguistic diversity. We'll visit the Mother Tongue Film Festival, where films made in indigenous languages from all over the world illustrate how ancient languages are still alive in today's Aboriginal cultures.
In all efforts to provide relief, the federal government of Nigeria provides palliatives to indigent citizens to ease the impact of COVID-19 pandemic.
Native American women in art. For centuries, their individual contributions have largely remained unrecognized until now. We'll see how these indigenous artists are getting their fair credit. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Africa 54. I'm Chamberlain Usowa, Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by my colleague at Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent McCory, filling in for Estegido Ewart at our global headquarters in Washington, D.C. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. We begin with the latest from Nigeria. Let's go back to Channels Television in Lagos.
The federal government of Nigeria is providing relief to indigent citizens to ease the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, courtesy of the social investment programs, including the conditional cash transfer. People living below the poverty line and other vulnerable groups are being given 20,000 naira cash to ease the hardship. Take a look.
As the number of COVID-19 cases in Nigeria continues to rise, the economic impact of the pandemic also keeps worsening, particularly on vulnerable populations. The federal government's social investment programs, such as the Homegrown School Feeding Program, the Empower Job Creation Program, loans for traders and artisans, and more recently, the conditional cash transfers to the poorest families, are designed to improve the welfare of those at the lower cadre of the economy. With the COVID-19 pandemic, these interventions, which were introduced even before the COVID-19, are expected to be implemented more aggressively. In Nasarawa State, north-central Nigeria, indigents received the 20,000 naira conditional cash transfer approved by President Muhammadu Buhari. The disbursement took place at different locations across 5 local government areas of the state. In Adamawa State, northeast Nigeria, about 17,000 persons from 12 local government areas benefited from the first tranche of the conditional cash transfer program.
I'm very excited, very happy, because I have something to do with the money already.
Cost of living is very high. Even to buy food, it's not easy for the family. So with this little token, I thank the federal government with that.
The state coordinator of the Social Investment Program describes the initiative as timely.
Payment is going on smoothly in Adamawa State. Most of our local governments have received their stipend, and the beneficiaries are happy about it.
It's a similar story in Cross River State, in the South-South region, where over 500 households across 30 communities have received the 20,000 naira conditional cash transfer from a total of 239,900,000 naira allocated to the state.
We have at least 240,000 people in the social register and 44,000 households. So we are going to go community by community, local government by local government, senatorial district by senatorial district, until we cover the whole of Cross River State, making sure that we pay beneficiaries in the YESO program.
I'll use the money to help myself to do business.
I've collected 26,500 and I'm so happy.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk, is in Imo State to brief the government on the planned palliatives, one of which is the Empower program. 34-year-old Ejiofor Chinwendu says it has impacted her poultry business.
In my farming, they have helped me a lot because from there I can buy my inputs, like fertilizers, good varieties, seeds that I'm using, cottons that I'm using. at least even with the training that they gave to us, have improved very well in this cloth production.
In Oyo State, the head of the program confirms that all the 33 local government areas are currently benefiting from the program.
We have 13,806 households, the poorest households, not individuals. All the 33 local governments were paid. These 13,806 beneficiary households were paid for January, February, March, April 2020.
Many Nigerians across the country remain in dire need of support to make it through in these tough times. There are calls for adequate provision to be made for more social investment programs to reach the intended beneficiaries, in addition to other palliatives.
Let's get more now on the federal government's social investment program and its impact it's having in the country. We're joined by Mr. David Ugolo, the Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice. He joins us from Benin City, the Edo State capital. Well, thank you for joining us today on the program. Now more than ever before, social investment programs are needed to cushion the economic impact of COVID-19 on impoverished households. How would you assess the ongoing initiatives?
Thank you for this opportunity to join this conversation. First, the social investment program, the way it is managed in Nigeria, again, the COVID-19 has raised the bar and the importance of the social investment. And so far, the government has improved on the implementation of social investment program in the country. If we draw the lessons from 2012, when the first social investment, the savings from the oil was invested in social protection program, which is called SHOPE. The process was mismanaged because of lack of transparency, and there wasn't a credible framework for identifying beneficiary. And from 2012 to today, where government now currently implement the cash transfer program and other social protection program, one can see some improvement owing to the framework that has been put in place with technical support from the World Bank and other credible institutions has helped to improve the implementation of the social protection program.
Oh, indeed, reaching every Nigerian that needs such intervention is the aim of the objective. What, in your perspectives, are the challenges associated with reaching the intended beneficiaries nationwide?
Well, I think one of the key challenges is that we have millions of Nigerians that are very poor and vulnerable. The resources, as you know, is not just enough to cover everybody. And this is a big challenge, and government do not have the capacity to deploy enough resources. And so the resources is scarce, and so when the resources is scarce and the number of people is more than the resources, you expect there will be a lot of challenges. And that's the challenge, and that's some of the negative narratives that you have heard so far around the cash transfer program in Nigeria. And now, but the problem is that most Nigerians are not aware of this social register. I think the low awareness around the social register has created problem. And even members of the National Assembly who are supposed to be conversant with the social registers claim also that they are not aware of the social register. But to be frank with you, the social register is a best practice adopted by countries who are also operating cash transfer program. And so the challenge is that governors are supposed to cooperate with NASCO and NCTU to set up the social register in their respective states. Unfortunately, most governors did not invest political will around this whole thing. And some governors did. And those are the governors you see readily that have put in place the social register framework. And that, again, is from there that you migrated it to the National Social Registers, that which NCTU, the National Cash Transfer Office, goes to mine the beneficiary data for deployment of the resources. So the challenge is that not everybody names appear on the social register.
Well, at the moment, many have expressed concerns about the strategy of the federal government's social investment program, including the National Assembly. Do you share these concerns?
I think that the concerns they raise, some are valid, but to allow politicians to not decide who benefits cash transfer program in Nigeria, you'll be returning us back to 2012 Shopee program. And we all know what happened with the Shopee program, how politicians mismanaged the process, and all the savings from the oil sales went down the drain. So what I expect that the National Assembly should be doing is to create an awareness. All they need to do, if they have concerns about areas of implementation, they should raise those concerns. But for them not to want to decide who benefits from cash transfer program is unacceptable. Nigerians should not allow this to happen. The National Assembly should only provide legislative and legal framework to support the process.
All right, David Ugolo, Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, thank you for talking to us today.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, meet the women of Ethiopian Airlines. Each year, this all-female crew flies from the Ethiopian capital to Washington, D.C. to mark International Women's Day. To Africa 54, I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Now, for the 6th year in a row, an Ethiopian Airlines flight has flown from the capital, Addis Ababa, to Washington, D.C. with an all-female crew to mark International Women's Day. VOA's Amharic service was at the welcoming ceremony in Washington's Dulles International Airport. VOA's Salem Solomon has more.
To celebrate International Women's Day, an all-female flight crew from Ethiopian Airlines flew from Addis Ababa to Washington, D.C. The flight marked the 6th consecutive year the airline has made the symbolically important flight with a female crew.
Ethiopian Airlines aims to show the African girls that there are no professions reserved for men only, and inspire them to have no limits to their dreams of becoming anything that they set their hearts to. In short,
the airline, the largest in Africa, has made hiring women a priority. 40% of its employees are female, including 32% in management positions. The airline has female pilots, aircraft technicians, engineers, flight dispatchers, load controllers, and ramp operators. Rahel said too often in Africa, girls are taught that their only worth is to marry and live a domestic life.
When their brothers are sent off to schools, girls are mostly held back at home to help out, as well as be groomed on how to be a good wife, a good mother, a good homemaker. Much work is needed to educate parents and communities in general that their daughters can be anything and everything their sons can.
Captain Amsale Gwalu, who piloted the transatlantic flight, became the first female airliner captain in Ethiopian history in 2010. She said it is important for women to support one another.
The main thing is networking. Women should have a connection among one another and exchange ideas. The other thing is supporting each other. For example, when we fly with an all-female crew, even when there are standard procedures, there are things that make you happy.
In 2015, there were only 8 female pilots at the airline. Today, Gwalu said there are 20, with another 24 training in aviation school.
The change has come. Women support each other, we have our own groups, and we show that it is possible. And by supporting each other, showing that it is achievable, is our responsibility.
Ethiopia's ambassador to the U.S., Fitsum Arega, says his government has made it a priority to promote women to positions of power, noting that half the Prime Minister's cabinet is made up of women, and the country now has a woman president and Chief Justice of Supreme Court.
There's an African proverb that says, if you educate a man, you educate one person. If you educate a woman, you educate a nation.
With Eden Garamo and Habtamu Siyum, Salim Solomon, VOA News, Washington.
Ethiopia Africa's second most populous nation has only one respiratory therapist certified to operate a mechanical ventilator, a machine used to treat severe cases of coronavirus. As the number of coronavirus cases increase in the country, the ventilator expert is racing against time to train as many people as possible to join efforts to save lives.
Habtamu Kahali's expertise is suddenly in high demand. He's Ethiopia's only respiratory therapist and therefore the country's only expert in using a ventilator. As the coronavirus pandemic gains a foothold in the country, Habtamu is now rushing to train others to use the machines that could mean the difference between life and death.
If they are not properly applied to the patients, the risk may be more than the benefit, by the way. So, So when we go to each hospital, we can see that from the trainings, we can see that there is a significant gap in the application, the clinical applications of this machine. So I could say that the gap is very high. So we're trying to narrow that gap by giving these very brief short-term trainings in line with this COVID-19 disease or outbreak.
Ethiopia's health minister says the country has around 435 ventilators, with plans to buy more, and that around 800 health professionals could operate them. But Habtamu says only very few have the necessary specialist skills.
Because of the emergency situation, we're trying to kind of make it in a crash course in two days. Like one round goes for 2 days, but that does not mean that this machine or the trainees will be able to really know everything about this machine within these 2 days. But I think that at least they can be ready to kind of support those clinicians who would know these machines better.
He's been touring hospitals to check their levels of preparedness, and since the end of March, he has put 78 health workers through 2 days of training, condensed from an original 1-week course. Ethiopia has at least 250 confirmed cases of the disease, a tally that has almost doubled over the past 8 days. The World Health Organization says around 5% of COVID-19 infections are severe enough to require intensive care and mechanical ventilation.
Well, as always, we like to invite you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and other programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, determined to save lives and money, see how this medical doctor explores a cheap alternative to scarce and expensive equipment needed in the battle against COVID-19. A medical doctor in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, who is determined to save lives and money, is offering a cheap alternative to scarce and expensive imported personal protective equipment to fight the spread of COVID-19 in a small health clinic. Some nurses working in the same facility are also taking a cue from that and making face masks with everyday items. Take a look.
When Dr. Abdallah Ouedraogo looks at a plastic folder, he sees a face shield. The Burkinabe medic was reading a document when he came up with the idea to repurpose the plastic sheet that was protecting the paper in order to protect healthcare professionals.
We looked around to see what we could do. I thought about it very hard, and one day I fell upon a document. I wanted to open the document, and then, as I tried to open it, only the plastic came open, not the page. As that happened, I looked at it and imagined that this plastic sheet could protect us like a shield.
By adding foam and elastic, he has homemade protective equipment at a fraction of the usual price.
When we inquired about it, we found that the price of an imported face shield was around 6,000 CFA francs. But according to our calculations, with 10,000 francs, we could make 100 face shields.
Ouedraogo's inventiveness could be useful in a country with an already threadbare health system, and it's not limited to face shields. At his health center in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, nurses make liquid soap in buckets and temporary face masks from paper towels.
When Dr. Ouedraogo sees something that needs to be done to improve the well-being of people and the personnel, he doesn't hesitate. So I would say he's an exemplary leader.
On their own, the face masks are not a total barrier, but it's hoped they provide some extra protection. And Ouedraogo's patients are not surprised at the innovations. His passion for recycling has been on show since he took over the clinic some 2 years ago, as evidence outside, where he's made parking spaces from tires, signs from fan blades, and a roundabout from old hospital beds, complete with a sculpture of a stethoscope.
Well, most Native American artwork is created by Native women. Yet, for centuries, their individual contributions have largely remained unrecognized and anonymous until now. Viewers Julie Tabo has more from a Washington, D.C. gallery.
A major new exhibition in the heart of Washington celebrates the artistic achievements of Native American women with more than 80 works of art. Hearts of Our People, Native Women Artists is the first exhibit of its kind, says Anya Montiel, curator of American and Native American women's art and craft at the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian American Art Museum.
There have been other exhibitions in the past that have featured only Native women artists, but those exhibitions tended to feature contemporary art. So the curators of this show, they wanted to make sure that this exhibition is comprehensive in the time span, as well as including many different artistic mediums as possible.
Those mediums range from paintings, textiles, and sculptures to baskets and even wearable art. The exhibit explores 3 central themes: legacy, relationship, and power.
Legacy is really talking about continuum. A lot of these artists have learned these traditions from their ancestors.
Adorned with teeth from hunted elk, it took many years to gather enough to decorate a single dress.
So you have this dress that is put together by the women of the family, but with this beautiful decoration that really shows the legacy of the entire family.
The theme of relationship represents the connection between humans and the earth.
This one is called Wisdom of the Universe by Christy Belcourt, and it looks like beadwork, but it's actually all painting in acrylic. And upon closer inspection, the insects, the birds, and the plants are actually endangered species. And so it's really presenting to us, well, what are we going to do about this?
The theme of power speaks to the authority of Native women within their nations.
Especially for the Muskogee Creek, they are a matrilineal nation. The women were the ones who made the decisions, especially about whether or not they were going to go to war.
Visitors at the exhibit had an emotional response.
The last piece I was just looking at had a scar from a woman's shoulder to her hip, and the trauma of a culture that has been really traumatized by another was extremely impactful.
The one over there with the girl and the scar in the back, that was really powerful. I don't know, it's just like I almost wanted to cry when I saw it.
And that's the point of this exhibit: expose people to the variety of artwork created by Native American women who may never have received the credit they deserve.
This exhibition has so many testaments of these women saying that despite everything that's happened to Native women, the cultures and the traditions are still so strong.
This touring exhibit remains in Washington until May. Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can also visit us online at voaafrica.com. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has the last word from Lagos.
Thank you, Vincent. We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Remember, channelstv.com, that's your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.